All right, everyone who is listening, this is Brother Doug at devotedtoyah.com. We are doing a study on Deuteronomy 15. If anyone wants to jump in to add a comment or a question, press *61. All right, here we go. And we're going to be going to Deuteronomy 15. And I will start reading. Okay. Every 7 years you shall make a release, and this is the ordinance of the release. You shall remit every private debt which your neighbor owes you, and you shall not ask payment of it from your brother, for it has been called a release to Yahuwah, your Elohim. Of a stranger you shall ask again whatsoever he has of yours, but to your brother you shall remit his debt to you. For thus there shall not be a poor person in the midst of you, for Yahuwah, your Elohim, will surely bless you in the land which Yahuwah, your Elohim, gives you by inheritance, that you should inherit it. And if you shall indeed hearken to the voice of Yahuwah, your Elohim, to keep and do all these instructions, as many as I charge you this day, for Yahuwah your Elohim has blessed you in the way which he spoke to you, then you shall lend to many nations, but you shall not borrow. And you shall rule over many nations, but they shall rule not over you. And if there shall be in the midst of you a poor man of your brothers in one of your cities, in the land which Yahuwah your Elohim gives you, you shall not harden your heart, neither shall you by any means close up your hand from your brother who is in want. You shall surely open your hands to him, and shall lend to him as much as he wants according to his need. Take heed to yourself, that there be not a secret thing in your heart, and lawlessness, saying, the 7th year, the year of release, draws near, and your eye shall be wicked to your brother that is in want, and you shall not give him. And he shall cry against you to Yahuwah, and there shall be great transgression on you. You shall surely give to him, and you shall lend to him as much as he wants, according as he is in need. And you shall not grudge in your heart as you give to him, because on this account Yahuwah your Elohim will bless you in all your works and in all your things on which you shall lay your hand. For in the poor shall not fail off your land. Therefore I charge you to this thing, saying, you shall surely open your hands to your poor brother, and to him that is distressed upon your land. And if your brother or sister, a Hebrew man or a Hebrew woman, be sold to you, he shall serve you 6 years. In the 7th year you shall send him out free from you. And when you shall send him out free from you, you shall not send him out empty. You shall give him provision for the way from your flock, and from your corn, and from your wine. As Yahuwah your Elohim has blessed you, you shall give to him. And you shall remember that you were a servant in the land of Egypt, and Yahuwah your Elohim redeemed you from there. Therefore I charge you to do this thing. And if he should say to you, I will not go out from you, because he continues to love you and your house, because he is well with you, then you shall take an awl and bore his ear through the door, and he shall be your servant forever. In like manner shall you do to your maidservant. It shall not seem hard to you when they are sent out from you, because your servant has served you 6 years according to the annual hire of a hireling. So Yahuwah your Elohim shall bless you in all things, whatsoever you may do. Even firstborn that shall be born among your kind and your sheep. You shall set apart the males to Yahuwah your Elohim. You shall not do work with your firstborn calf, and you shall not shear the firstborn of your sheep. You shall eat it before Yahuwah, year by year, in the place which Yahuwah your Elohim shall choose, you and your house. And if there be in it a blemish, if it be lame or blind, and wicked blemish, you shall not sacrifice it to Yahuwah your Elohim. You shall eat it in your cities, the unclean in you, and the clean shall eat it in like manner as the doe or the stag. Only you shall not eat the blood. You shall pour it out on the earth as water. All right. Anybody got any comments, anything? I actually remember this chapter. Me and Dee went over it, I think, a couple weeks ago, actually.
So I totally think that this is why America specifically is in such dire straits, every day. I don't even know what I hear the spending on today, billions here, millions there. I hear this, I do. I can't believe it. This college debt. We have to forgive people their monies they owe. I feel like if our country, we would, of course it's going to be beneficial for me, but I'm not saying it because of that. I'm saying it, it's even written in the King James that you can't understand it. I never understood it. They keep it hidden. This is like one of the top secrets. I feel like because of this, because we're going to be punished. Because of this, I think that America won't be in the book, isn't in the book of Revelations because of this. Everyone goes on and on about the Sodom and Gomorrah and all their nonsense, but it was because they were rich and they neglected the poor and needy. I could go on and on about how much burden and misery goes on in families. How many little kids get yelled at? How many little kids are brokenhearted? If this principle could just be applied in our country, that would bring such relief. It's such a shame that this could really, that's all I wanted to say about it. And, it's continually the same thing throughout the Word, throughout the Scriptures. We don't do what we're told. It's clearly there in black and white. And a couple weeks ago we talked about it. I set before you this day, blessing and cursing. We do what's right. This is the right thing to do. Forgive your debts. Forgive those people who are indebted to you. We do that. And that's all I wanted to say.
Oh, yeah, I agree totally. I think along with the poor, with neglecting the poor, they've neglected Yahuwah's Torah. And it actually talks about in Isaiah that Yahuwah's going to send judgment on people that neglect his Torah and that profane his law. So I believe that it's not just neglecting the poor and everything, even though neglecting the poor is actually undefiled religion according to Yahushua's brother Jacob. Mm-hmm. So we live in a country that has neglected true religion, a country that has done what the Pharisees have done, according to Mark 7:7, obtained traditions of men over Yahuwah's law. Mm-hmm. And I think at this point, Yahuwah's judgment's coming. Whether people like it or not, it's coming. And people want to say...
How come? Why do you think it's taken so long?
Didn't Yahuwah say to Abraham, the exact words was, the lawlessness of the Amorites is not yet full.
Yeah.
So I think Yahuwah, in his mind, he has a law that he binds himself by, or a covenant within himself, that he allows a nation or allows a people to get for their sins to reach the top, to as high as it can get, and to the maximum that as lawless as they possibly can get, and then he judges the nation. That's how merciful he is. He allows sin to reach its peak before he executes his judgment. So that's just my personal opinion. That's what I take away.
That's a good one.
That's what I take away from what Yahuwah says in the Tanakh. And I mean, if we believe he doesn't change, and he allows the Amorites to have all this time, then that's what he's done with us. He's allowed people to sin and keep on sinning, but he's not going to allow it forever. There's going to be a certain point where he's going to execute his judgment because, his word is his bond. So, when transgression is full, and I believe that's when the tribulation is probably going to start. That's just my opinion. But I saw a lot of stuff in that chapter, though. A lot of stuff that it's very interesting about the release. 6 days that your servant shall serve you, and then the 7th is a release. So there's a lot of stuff with how the 7th day is a Sabbath.
Yeah.
So I believe the whole there's a lot of spiritual connection with the Sabbath and with the Jubilee. The Jubilee is known as the year of release. So I think
It's actually the Shemitah is every 7 years. What this is talking about, the Jubilee is 50. That's a 50-year thing. That's even more profound. That is actually, it's so upsetting because the calendar's being wrong. We can't really know. I mean, I guess you can know, but I have no idea. It's every 50 years is a Jubilee. It's around this time. That's when the lands are restored. I mean, that's when, if you lost your family's lost a land, you get that back. That's even more than just the Shemitah that's every 7 years.
Yeah. The fact of the matter is, our calendar has been messed up, but what Yahuwah does is he allows us to realize that we're not in the right calendar. He at least gives us clues, And I never would read the book of Daniel when I was a Christian, but then when I started reading it and getting into Yahuwah and Yahushua's truth, my light bulb clicked up when I read that verse that said he would look to change appointed times and laws. And it started making me think, well, hasn't that happened? Christianity has, thrown out the appointed times and made their own. They try to change the Sabbath. I could go on and on how that verse from how that verse from Daniel has been fulfilled already. And I believe there is a conspiracy to make us not know Yahuwah's calendar, but Yahuwah has at least, given us an idea. He's at least given us an idea to know how to calculate his calendar. I think, Scripture is not just put there for the fun of it. Yahuwah is not just going to be like, okay, let me, have all these books put into, or have my prophets write all these scrolls for no reason. No, everything Yahuwah puts there, there's no idle word in the Bible. So when I look at, the Jubilee, and not just the Jubilee, but when the first day of the year is supposed to start, and when the first month of the new year is supposed to start, I mean, that stuff is not just idle. That stuff is there for a reason. So, Yahuwah's not going to leave us in the dark, I guess is that what I'm trying to say. He's not going to leave us in the dark. He's going to give us clues. He's not going to be like, okay, I'm going to let you walk in the dark, and, it's up to you to, figure everything out. I mean, yeah, we have to use common sense and stuff, but Yahuwah gives us the information. He's leading us in the way. And I believe we obviously can't know the perfect calendar right now, but we're a lot closer than what we were. And, all right, we are going to go to chapter 16 in Deuteronomy. Observe the month of Abib, and keep the Passover to Yahuwah your Elohim, for in the month of Abib, Yahuwah your Elohim brought you out of Egypt by night. You shall sacrifice the Passover to Yahuwah your Elohim of the flock and herd in the place which Yahuwah shall choose to cause his name to dwell there. You shall eat no leavened bread with it. You shall eat leavened bread with it 7 days, even the bread of affliction, for you came out of the land of Egypt in haste, that you may remember the day when you came out of the land of Egypt all the days of your life. No yeast shall be seen with you in all your borders 7 days, neither shall any of the meat which you sacrifice the first day at evening remain all night until morning. You may not sacrifice the Passover with any of your gates which Yahuwah your Elohim gives you, but at the place which Yahuwah your Elohim shall choose to cause his name to dwell in, there you shall sacrifice the Passover at evening, at the going down of the sun. Wow. At the season that you came out of Egypt. You shall roast and eat it in the place which Yahuwah your Elohim chooses. In the morning you shall return to your tents. 6 days you shall eat unleavened bread. On the 7th day shall be a solemn assembly to Yahuwah your Elohim. You shall do no work. You shall count for yourself 7 weeks from the time you begin to put the sickle to the standing grain. You shall begin to count 7 weeks. You shall keep the feast of weeks to Yahuwah your Elohim with a tribute of a free will offering of your land, which you shall give according to how Yahuwah your Elohim blesses you. You shall rejoice before Yahuwah your Elohim, you, your son, your daughter, your male servant, your female servant, the Levite who is within your gates, the foreigner, the fatherless, and the widow, who are among you in the place which Yahuwah your Elohim shall choose to cause his name to dwell there. You shall remember that you were a slave in Egypt. You shall observe and do these statutes. You shall keep the feast of booths 7 days after you have gathered in from your threshing floor and from your winepress. You shall rejoice in your feast, you, your son, your daughter, your male servant, your female servant, the Levite, the foreigner, the fatherless, and the widow who are within your gates. You shall keep a feast to Yahuwah your Elohim 7 days in the place which Yahuwah chooses, because Yahuwah your Elohim will bless you in all your increase and in all the work of your hands, and you shall be altogether joyful. 3 times in a year all of your males shall appear before Yahuwah your Elohim in the place which he chooses, in the feast of unleavened bread, in the feast of weeks, and in the feast of booths. They shall not appear before Yahuwah empty. Every man shall give as he is able, according to Yahuwah your Elohim's blessing which he has given you. You shall make judges and officers in all your gates, which Yahuwah your Elohim gives you, according to your tribes, and they shall judge the people with righteous judgment. You shall not pervert justice, you shall not show partiality, you shall not take a bribe. For a bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and perverts the words of the righteous. You shall follow that which is altogether just, that you may live and inherit the land which Yahuwah your Elohim gives you. You shall not plant for yourselves a Asherah of any kind of tree besides Yahuwah your Elohim's altar, which you shall make for yourselves. Neither shall you set yourself up a sacred stone which Yahuwah your Elohim hates.
Well, I was thinking back to how, when we were talking earlier about how Deuteronomy, is kind of a sermon, or it's in the style of preaching or teaching. And this seems to me to be, more of a recounting, of guarding the feasts and the set apart days, and, really adding on about appearing in Jerusalem for Sukkot, for Passover, and for the Feast of Shavuot. And I think, too, this chapter testifies to how, truthfully, we in captivity right now cannot completely fulfill or keep these feasts, because they actually are, in a way, land-based, meaning that, there's things that in order to truly keep these to how they are explicitly written, we have to be in the land. And, everything has to be operating in a manner in which these things can even be done. I believe that, that we can keep the feast in spirit and in truth, but at the same time, there are certain requirements in these commandments and in these words that we cannot completely live out these commandments for the feast days. Not saying that we should not, do our best and, seek the Father on this, but, with many things, even like the year of release, we can't really do anything about that right now. Can we apply the principles and the spirit behind that to our lives now? I believe so, definitely. But in terms, can you hear me?
Yeah. I was just clearing the queue. Because there was still one question thing up from way before, so I was just clearing.
Yeah, I didn't really have too much to add. I just wanted to speak on that briefly.
Okay. All right, so since I clear a Q&A section, I probably got to make a new one, right?
Maybe.
Yeah, let me see. I don't know how much longer he wants us to record, though. I'm trying to see. So I think we recorded for, 20, 30 minutes already? So I'm trying to think if...
I think so. Maybe what we can do is maybe go to... we're already on 17. Maybe we can just go to, Deuteronomy 20.
I don't know. I think Darnell probably wants us to go in order just for the listener's sake. So we'll I think what we'll do is we'll do Deuteronomy 17, and I think we'll end the recording out there because it's probably been a good bit already.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
I at first I thought you were thinking I was trying to say jump to 20.
No.
I was thinking maybe read up to 20, but that's fine.
No. I just thought you were trying to say to jump to Deuteronomy 20 from here. That's what I thought you were. Yeah. So no, but we can read the Deuteronomy 20. Yeah. By then it's definitely going to be it's going to be at the 2-hour mark. So after that we'll definitely have to stop the recording. All right. Okay.
Can I read 1 or 2 chapters?
Yeah. Yeah. If you want to read, Dave, you can.
Okay, and we're at Deuteronomy 17, right?
Yep.
All right, we're at Deuteronomy 17. You shall not sacrifice unto Yahuwah your Elohim any bullock or sheep wherein is blemish or any evil favoredness, for that is an abomination unto Yahuwah your Elohim. If there be found among you within any of your gates, which Yahuwah your Elohim gives you, man or woman that has wrought wickedness in the sight of Yahuwah your Elohim in transgressing his covenant, and has gone and served other Elohim and worshipped them, either the sun or moon or any of the host of heaven, which I have not commanded, and it be told you, and you have heard of it, and inquired diligently, and behold, it be true, and the thing certain, that such abomination is wrought in Israel, then shall you bring forth that man or that woman which have committed that wicked thing unto your gates, even that man or that woman, and that shall stone them with stones till they die. At the mouth of 2 witnesses or 3 witnesses shall he that is worthy of death be put to death, but at the mouth of 1 witness he shall not be put to death. The hands of the witnesses shall be first upon him to put him to death, and afterward the hands of all the people. So you shall put the evil away from among you. If there arise a matter too hard for you in judgment, between blood and blood, between plea and plea, and between stroke and stroke, being matters of controversy within your gates, then you shall arise and get you up into the place which Yahuwah your Elohim shall choose, and you shall come unto the priests, the Levites, and unto the judge that shall be in those days, and inquire, and they shall show you the sentence of judgment. And you shall do according to the sentence which they of that place which Yahuwah shall choose shall show you, and you shall guard to do according to all that they inform you, according to the sentence of the Torah which they shall teach you, and according to the judgment which they shall tell you, you shall do. You shall not decline from the sentence which they shall show you to the right hand nor to the left. And the man that will do presumptuously and will not hearken unto the priest that stands to minister there before Yahuwah your Elohim, or unto the judge, even that man shall die, and you shall put away the evil from Israel. And all the people shall hear and fear, and do no more presumptuously. When you are come unto the land which Yahuwah your Elohim gives you, and shall possess it, and shall dwell therein, and shall say, I will set a king over me, like as all the nations that are about me. You shall in any wise set him king over you, whom Yahuwah your Elohim shall choose. One from among your brethren shall you set king over you. You may not set a stranger over you, which is not your brother, but he shall not multiply horses to himself, nor cause the people to return to Mitzrayim, to the end that he shall multiply horses. For as much as Yahuwah has said unto you, you shall henceforth return no more that way, neither shall he multiply women to himself, that his heart turn not away. Neither shall he greatly multiply to himself silver and gold. And it shall be, when he sits upon the throne of his kingdom, that he shall write him a copy of this Torah and a sefer out of that which is before the priests, the Levites. And it shall be with him, and he shall read therein all the days of his life, that he may learn to fear Yahuwah your Elohim, to guard all the words of this Torah and these statutes, to do them, that his heart be not lifted up above his brethren, and that he turn not aside from the commandment to the right hand nor to the left, to the end that he may prolong his days in the kingdom, he and his children in the midst of Israel. I wanted to comment really quickly on this one. In Deuteronomy 17, it appears as if this is setting up and kind of, establishing the method of authority in terms of judgment and disputes and witnesses and purging evil from among us, and also talking about how when you have a king over you, the king is supposed to be righteous, and the king is supposed to lead by example and not be crooked. He's also held to the standards of the Torah, just as the people that he's ruling over. There's no partiality. He should be obeying the commandments of Yah, just as the people that he is ruling over.
Yeah, what I see here is also a lot of stuff is correlating with me with why our nation is in the trouble we're in. Kind of reminds me of the way that Yahuwah tells Yashrael the way their king should be is the complete opposite of what we have as president, or what any nation at this point has as king over them. And it's a big deal. That's not supposed to be a foreigner, not supposed to be someone that's not in covenant. So, if we were in our own land, we shouldn't. If we were in our own land, I think this would be applicable. We wouldn't be able. We would be able to set up the king that Yahuwah wants to reign over us. Another thing is, it kind of reminds me of why King Solomon was why Yahuwah took the kingdom out from King Solomon, because he became the type of king that Yahuwah is telling Yashrael not to have them rule over them, not to have a king that multiplies his horses or to multiply his wives. I mean, King Solomon did everything Yahuwah told them, not to do. So, it kind of reminds me, and the worship of the signs and the stars, the signs of the heavens, the stars, the sun and the moon, that's pretty much every major religion.
Exactly.
In humanity.
Every nation.
People wonder, why is this happening to me? Oh, I pray to God every day. I'm like, okay, which God?
Exactly,
which God?
Because there are other divine, other heavenly entities that are up there running around that are actually, according to the Tanakh, that are actually Elohim or God. So, we need to be careful when we praying to people, or not praying to people, but when we pray and when other people, especially non-believers,
and you gotta be careful what you're praying for too, because what's interesting is in the Septuagint, I wanted to show someone and listeners real quick. I don't want to get too off tangent because this is Darren L's channel here, but I did want to show you something from the Septuagint. It's a little interesting. This is Isaiah 65 verse 11. And it says, "But you are they that have left me, and forgot my set-apart mountain, and prepare a table for the devil, and fill up the drink offering to fortune." And that's the only translation that will have devil. That will have devil there instead of God.
That's very interesting.
So I just wanted to bring that up because a lot of people pray for money, pray for materialistic things. Well, they're not. They're most likely praying to the God of this world and not even knowing it. Because you worship money, you're not worshiping Yahuwah, and Yahushua said himself, you cannot have two masters. So,
amen. Seek ye first the kingdom.
Yeah, in most translations, it says mammon. Mammon, actually, in English, would be money. So, Yahushua is actually telling people you can't serve Yahuwah money. It's impossible. So, that's I just wanted to bring that up because that's a huge point that when we get to the point where we're so focused on these distractions in this world, we can't. It's impossible to be his children. It's impossible, and like I said, all these religions, they worship the stars, the sun, the moon. So really, what all these religions are doing is what the Yashraelites eventually ended up doing, and that's why Yahuwah cut them off. He divorced Yashrael because they were worshiping the sun and the moon. If you look up Ashtoreth, she's the moon goddess. You look up Baal, he's the sun god.
Yep.
So really they were just worshiping. They were worshiping the signs of the heavens, and Yahuwah, even in Jeremiah, says, don't be awed by the signs of the heavens. Don't be awed by them because the nations are awed by them. So, Yahuwah is constantly reminding Yashrael, stop doing this. Don't do it. And they didn't want to listen. And we're doing the same thing as mankind in these last days. 90% of mankind is worshiping the signs of the heavens and not even knowing it.
Exactly. They have no idea. And see, that's the thing. This stuff has been going on for so long, and if you think about it too, even us as so-called Gentiles, coming out of the world, we're in a way just like how Israel was when they were in Egypt, because when they were in Egypt, they got absorbed into their culture. They learned and understood their ways. Moses, he grew up and he knew all that stuff. But when they were brought out of it, Yah was having to teach them, look, this is what you are supposed to be doing, and this is what you're not supposed to be doing. Don't worry about all these other nations. Don't be awed at them. Don't, wonder at what they're doing, these nations are wicked, and I'm driving them out before you because of their wickedness. And I wanted to jump really quick back to what we're talking about with the king, and you had spoken about Solomon. What I find interesting, someone had pointed out one time to me that in Hebrews 11, Solomon is not listed under those, I guess you can maybe say the champions of faith, of our faith, Abraham, David, Moses, Noah, Rahab, who was a whore. Yeah. Solomon's not there, and Solomon was the wisest man ever to live. Just Yah told Solomon, "Ask me whatever you want. You can ask anything of me." And Solomon asked to be wiser and to understand. He asked for wisdom and all that, but Yah ended up blessing him with everything because of what he asked him for, and that was for wisdom and understanding. But it seems that he did not mix it with faith, according to Hebrews 11. Because as we see, Solomon fell by the wayside because his heart was filled up with pride and riches and women and lust and flesh.
Yep. And I think that was the problem with King Solomon, was the fact that he allowed his wives to have him stray away. And that's really what turned him away. In Scripture, you don't see him really being straying away until he brought his Egyptian wife into his palace, and then he had a bunch of other wives, not just her, but 1,000 other wives, all pagans, all worshiping idols. And we're really hard on King Solomon, but to be honest, if we allowed ourselves to have 1,000 wives, I don't know. I think that's
exactly. Really, it's not going to be pretty.
Yeah, I mean I think that's where he messed up, because he didn't start getting prideful until he had these wives that obviously were turning him away from Yahuwah. There was no doubt about it. There's even scripture that talks about him sacrificing to Yahuwah and sacrificing to their gods at the same time. So his heart was being pulled away from Yahuwah. And it's funny because King David told him, he's like, you serve Yahuwah with your whole heart. So that's the one thing King David, when he was dying, told King Solomon, do not let your heart depart from Yahuwah. And, it's a shame. It's a shame, because his dad was trying to tell him, like, listen, man, don't, serve him with your whole heart, not 90%, not 80%, his whole heart.
And see, and that's right at the end of this, it warns about that. It says, this is talking about the king of Israel, neither shall he multiply women to himself, that his heart turn not away, neither shall he greatly multiply to himself silver and gold. So right here we have a warning, and this is the thing. Even though this is for the king, this still applies for us, because we should not, we should be wary, and we should make sure that we're not letting our heart deceive us. Because even if we're not king, we shouldn't really be out here multiplying wives to ourselves and really focusing and going after riches. These things are really nothing in the grand scheme of things. Can it happen and work successfully to have multiple wives? I believe so, but I believe that especially now that it's very rare that it's going to work. And how much, even back then, first of all, the Most High created man and woman, so we see the ideal picture as one man and one woman, but the Most High did make provisions for a man to have multiple women. But ideally, these situations should be one man and one woman, as we see at the beginning.
Yeah,
but ultimately we see top to bottom a Torah life and obedience to the Most High in fairness and no partiality, and doing things correctly, whether you're king or whether you're, I guess you said, an everyday citizen, no matter who you are.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I mean, I believe that Yahuwah allowed that for a certain reason. He allowed polygamy for a purpose. It wasn't for a guy to have, whatever with, more than one woman. I don't see that as the purpose. I see it as that Yahuwah used polygamy as a tool to create, his set apart people in a way,
Yeah.
To create the 12 tribes, Jacob had to have more than one wife.
Exactly.
So, I mean, that alone, what I think was a tool that Yahuwah used. Now, was that Yahuwah's will for a guy to have 2 or 3 wives? I don't think so. He only gave Adam one wife. So, it goes back to the original plan was one man, one woman. And one thing that really blew my mind was Jim Staley actually did a teaching about, what possibly the symbolism of Adam and Eve being torn out of Adam, how it connects to the tribe of Yehuda and Yashrael, that even though they're separated, they are meant to become one. So how it says, a man joins himself to his wife, and they become one flesh. And Jim Staley was just making a metaphor that Yashrael, ultimately Yahuwah's will is for Yashrael and Yehuda to be one house, one tribe, or not one tribe, but one house, basically to have them join themselves and be Yashrael united again. So
hallelujah.
That's just something to think about, that that's Yahuwah's ultimate goal, to have all 12 tribes and to have
Are you there?
Doug. I don't know why that conference call got dropped. Okay. But like I said, I guess let's see. We could do another 2 chapters, and probably
let's do that.
And then we'll end the recording. Then we can just chit chat after that. All right. All right. So now you read Deuteronomy 18.
17. Can I read 18
17.
as well?
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yep, it was
all
17.
Right. Okay. So, yeah, if you want, you can read 18, and I'll read 19.
Okay. All right, Deuteronomy 18. The priests, the Levites, and all the tribe of Levi shall have no part nor inheritance with Israel. They shall eat the offerings of Yahuwah made by fire, and his inheritance. Therefore shall they have no inheritance among their brethren. Yahuwah is their inheritance, as he has said unto them. And this shall be the priest's due from the people, from them that offer a sacrifice, whether it be ox or sheep. And they shall give unto the priest the shoulder, and the 2 cheeks, and the maw, the first fruit also of your grains, of your wine, and of your oil. And the first of the fleece of your sheep shall you give him. For Yahuwah your Elohim has chosen him out of all your tribes to stand to minister in the name of Yahuwah, him and his sons forever. And if a Levite come from any of your gates out of all Israel, where he sojourned, and come with all the desire of his mind unto the place which Yahuwah shall choose, then he shall minister in the name of Yahuwah your Elohim, as all his brethren the Levites do, which stand there before Yahuwah. They shall have like portions to eat, beside that which comes of the sale of his patrimony. When you are coming to the land which Yahuwah your Elohim gives you, you shall not learn to do after the abominations of those nations. There shall not be found among you anyone that makes his son or his daughter pass through the fire, or that uses divination, or one that practices sorcery, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. For all that do these things are an abomination unto Yahuwah. And because of these abominations, Yahuwah your Elohim drives them out from before you. You shall be perfect with Yahuwah your Elohim, for these nations which you shall possess hearkened unto sorcerers and unto diviners. But as for you, Yahuwah your Elohim has not suffered you to do so. Yahuwah your Elohim will raise up unto you a prophet from the midst of you, of your brethren, like unto me. Unto him ye shall hearken, according to all that you desired of Yahuwah your Elohim in Horeb in the day of the assembly, saying, Let me not hear again the voice of Yahuwah your Elohim, neither let me see this great fire any more, that I die not. And Yahuwah said unto me, They have well spoken that which they have spoken. I will raise them up a prophet from among their brethren, like unto you, and will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak unto them all that I shall command him. And it shall come to pass that whosoever will not hearken unto my words, which he shall speak in my name, I will require it of him. But the prophet which shall presume to speak a word in my name, which I have not commanded him to speak, or that shall speak in the name of other Elohim, even that prophet shall die. And if you say in your heart, How shall we know the word which Yahuwah has not spoken? When a prophet speaks in the name of Yahuwah, if the thing follow not, nor come to pass, that is the thing which Yahuwah has not spoken. But the prophet has spoken it presumptuously. You shall not be afraid of him. Hallelujah. Well, this one actually contains the prophet of the Messiah. In verse 15, we'll go over the rest of this, but in verse 15, Moses is telling them about the prophet that Yah is going to raise up from them, because when Yah was speaking to Israel from the mountain, they were so scared that they didn't want Yah to speak to them directly. They wanted Moses to intercede for them and speak to Yah for them, because they were so scared. They thought they were going to die because he was speaking to them. But Yah actually had said he was going to raise up a prophet based off of what they said to him, that he's going to raise them a prophet because they were scared of Yah. He's going to raise them a prophet because they didn't want to hear from Yah directly. So y'all, all these Tanakh only people, for example, will go on and on about how, we don't need anybody to speak to us from Yah. But the Israelites did not want Yah to speak to them directly. So our own ancestors, were begging, please don't speak to us directly. Speak to Moses. We don't want to die. But hallelujah for the Most High promising to raise up a prophet like Moses that was going to speak. And if he was going to speak in Yah's name, his authority, his character, his reputation, his power. And that's all I got to say for that portion right now. We also read some about the Levites, and also we just spoke on this on the previous chapter, but it's funny because it came into play. It talks about, when you come into the nation or into the land, don't do after the nations, period. And see, in this day and age, the nations run everything and the nations provide everything. So just like the Israelites back then, how much more are we going to be like them now, to where we're tempted to be like the nations around us? We see all these ways that Americans live, and all these thoughts and lifestyles and habits and vices and things like that. And really, it's just all a snare. It's all from the devil. Yah doesn't want us to be living like this. And he tells his people over and over, look, don't do what the nations do. The nations worship these other strange gods. These nations do these abominations. Stay away from it. Even now, when you read the Torah, you see, and Yah opens your eyes to understand. He starts to show you the difference between good and evil. Hallelujah. That's all I got to comment on that for right now.
I think our situation is a little different from this time period in Scripture. I believe we're more of a exile like Daniel was. I believe we're in a foreign land that's not our own, and all we can do is do our best to obey Yahuwah as much as we possibly can in a foreign land. And that's why I harp on the fact that we're not in our land, and there is some stuff we just can't do. And I'm not trying to say be lawless, but I am saying you have to look at things in a literal view that, okay, there's no temple. We're not in the Holy Land. We can't do sacrifices. We can't do, there's certain stuff we can't do. And that's why I don't judge someone on how they keep the Passover. I don't judge someone how they keep the feast days. You can't. There's no Torah observing government here. You can't stone people. Like, I know a lot of people, love questioning us. Oh, well, that means you're supposed to stone someone, right? I'm like, well, technically, no. We don't have a Torah observing government. We're not in our own land. You can't just do stuff your own way. Nadab and Abihu tried to do stuff their own way, offered strange fire to Yahuwah. He consumed them. So, Yahuwah wants us to do his laws in his way. So, if there's certain things that prohibit us from doing his law, I don't think he wants us going out in the flesh, trying to do certain commands that we physically can't do. There's certain stuff we just can't do. Like I said, stoning is like the main thing that I believe won't happen until the millennial. I don't think we're supposed to be stoning people until Yahushua comes back, or until there's a Torah keeping government.
Yeah. Well,
that's just me.
Well, one thing I wanted to say really quickly, I do agree with what you were saying, about us, not being in the land and us, being in captivity, like Daniel, for example. But I think what I was really trying to get at was, the concept of, not, like we spoke about earlier, not being dismayed at the signs and the nations and the sun and the stars, because even though you and me, we are technically in captivity. And I would say for me, I think we might be more of like at a wilderness type of place, or because if you and me were already called, if we're called out, just like how Israel was called out of Egypt, if we're called out, we're already past that point. We're going forward. We're supposed to live for Yah. We're past that point of not understanding and not knowing these things. But I do believe that the concept of turning away from the nations and the people around you and in your city, in your state, in your country, these things can still be done, because Daniel, for example, refused to eat the meat, and he only ate vegetables. And he told him, he said, look, I'm not going to eat the meat, but I want you to see how good I'm going to look at the end of this time that I'm eating only these vegetables. And they were amazed at how he looked when he only ate vegetables, but he refused to bow down, just like I don't know their Hebrew names by memory, but we all know Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. That's their Babylonian names. But they themselves refused to bow down to King Nebuchadnezzar. And they were in captivity. And I think for us, too, we should look at that as inspiration for us to the length that we, in a way, should be going with our faith, because ultimately that's what the Messiah taught us, was obedience unto death. And we see Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, refusing to bow down even to the point of death. They were ready. They said, look, Yah can deliver us, but even if he doesn't, we still are not going to bow down to you. And I believe that we can still take these principles from the Torah, even if we don't live in Israel, for example. And, and us all, work on, turning away from the way that our nations are, because we have left our nation. You and me, are we American citizens? Yes, but that we don't really belong to this nation. We should be turning our back on this nation. All the things this nation taught us, because this nation is under a God or under an Elohim that's not the Most High Elohim Yah. And it teaches ways contrary, to the Most High's ways. And
and I think I really think that's Yahuwah and Yahusha opening our eyes, because
hallelujah,
a lot of people don't realize who this nation's God has always been. And I know people don't like it when I say this to them, listen, research, please. Anyone who's listening here, yeah, I really know we're not supposed to be talking about anything other than Scripture, but please, if you don't believe me, research for yourself what it was the true faith of our founding fathers, and you'll be shocked. That's all I'm going to say. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say about that. I want us to stay in Scripture, but if you don't believe us, look for yourselves on YouTube. There's plenty of videos that they do research on and tell you who they actually worshipped, and it's not Yahuwah, and it's not Yahusha. So I'm just going to leave it at that, and let's go to the next chapter. Because this is Darrenell's show here. I don't want to be getting sidetracked. All right. Deuteronomy 19. And when Yahuwah your Elohim shall have destroyed the nations which Yahuwah gives you, even the land, and you shall inherit them and dwell in their cities and in their houses, and you shall separate for yourself 3 cities in the midst of your land, which Yahuwah your Elohim gives you. Take a survey of the way, and you shall divide the coasts of your land, which Yahuwah your Elohim apportions to you in 3 parts, and there shall be there a refuge for every manslayer. And this shall be the ordinance of the manslayer who shall flee there and shall live. Whosoever shall have smitten his neighbor ignorantly, keyword, whereas he hated him not in the times past, and whosoever shall enter with his neighbor into the thicket to gather wood, if the hand of him that cuts wood with the axe should be violently shaken, and the axe head falling off from the handle should light on his neighbor, and he should die, he shall flee to one of these cities and live, lest the avenger of blood pursue after the slayer, because his heart is hot and overtaken him. And if the way be too long, and slay him, though there is to this man no sentence of death, because he hated him not in time past. Therefore I charge you, saying, you shall separate for yourself 3 cities. And if Yahuwah shall enlarge your borders as he swore to your fathers, and Yahuwah shall give to you all the land which he said he would give to your fathers, if you shall hearken to do all these instructions which I charge you this day, to love Yahuwah your Elohim, to walk in all his ways continually, you shall add for yourself yet 3 cities to these 3. So innocent blood shall not be spilt in the land, which Yahuwah your Elohim gives you to inherit. And there shall not be in you one guilty of blood. But if there should be in you a man hating his brother, and he should lay wait for him, and rise up against him, and smite him that he die, and he should flee to one of these cities, then shall the elders of this city send and take him there, and they shall deliver him in the hands of the avengers of blood, and he shall die. Your eye shall not spare him. So shall you purge innocent blood from Yasrael, and it shall be well with you. You shall not move the landmarks of your neighbor, which your father set in the inheritance, in which you have obtained a share in the land, which Yahuwah your Elohim gives you to inherit. One witness shall not stand to testify against a man for any lawlessness, or for any fault, or for any transgression which he may commit. By the mouth of 2 witnesses, or by the mouth of 3 witnesses, shall every word be established. And if an unjust witness rises up against a man, alleging lawlessness against him, then shall the 2 men between whom the controversy is stand before Yahuwah, and before the priests and before the judges who may be in those days, and the judges shall make diligent inquiry, and behold, if an unjust witness was borne unjust testimony and has stood up against his brother, then shall you do to him as he wickedly devised to do against his brother, and you shall remove the evil from yourselves. And the rest shall hear and fear, and do no more according to this wickedness thing in the midst of you. Your eye shall not spare him, and you shall exact life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. So this is all about the law for murder, is what we just read. There is a way for someone to escape if they kill by mistake, if they kill their brother by mistake. But if he kills him on purpose, this guy is to be put to death at the witness of 2 or 3 witnesses. So there's a distinction between ignorantly killing someone and deliberately hating someone in your heart, which actually Yahusha in the Brit Hadashah says, you've already committed murder. You don't even have to do it. So that's an interesting thing, is Yahusha actually explains the Torah. I always looked at the Old and New Testament when I got into this understanding as it was concealed in the Old Testament and revealed in the New Testament. So it's like it's always a mystery to the Torah because you don't understand fully what the Torah actually is in the Brit Hadashah. I mean, in the Tanakh, of how to execute the Torah in the right way. But then Yahusha comes and tells you how you're supposed to be doing it. I believe that was there was 2 main reasons why Yahuwah came in the flesh.
Hallelujah.
To show us how to live by his Torah, because obviously the Yasharites got it wrong. They started adding to it. They started putting Babylonian Talmud traditions above it, as Yahusha said. And, they even started corrupting the Torah by, doing stuff in their own way. They were probably stoning people without 2 or 3 witnesses and, doing stuff that just was outright evil. And that's why Yahusha says, if you hate your brother in your heart, you've already committed murder. If you hate someone in your heart, you've already a murderer. And if you lust after a woman in your heart, if you lusted after a woman with your eyes, you've committed adultery in your heart, even though you haven't done anything. It's the fact that you've already thought about it, you've already wanted to do it, and that's transgression. So Yahusha kind of explains it in the Brit Hadashah of what sin actually is. It's an evil intention. It doesn't always have to be an action. It can be a thought. It can be something. Yep. It can be your words, your thoughts, your intentions, having a wicked heart. So I just wanted to add that.
Well, really, it starts in the heart, because Yahushua said that, this is usually often taken out of context, but he said it's not what goes in that defiles you, it's what comes out of your heart, because what comes out of your heart is evil. Mm-hmm. What's in men's heart is evil. And when David saw Bathsheba on the roof, he saw her, he thought about it, he longed for her, he wanted her, and that's the thing, even before he laid with her, he was already sitting right there on the roof just looking on her like that. As soon as he sent, because he had to think that, because he had to send men for her. He inquired of her with men, so he obviously had to think about this and ponder on it and get it going, just like Eve. When the serpent was deceiving and trying to trick Eve, he got into her head and had her start to think about these things, He she didn't just say, oh, okay, let me get some of that fruit. She looked at it and she started thinking, this tree, this looks actually pretty good. This seems like it'll make me wise. Now, maybe what that serpent said really was true. It all starts in the heart and in the heart. And that's a big thing, because a lot of what I think Israel missed out on was the internal aspect of Torah and the internal aspect of righteousness, and not an outward-based fleshly righteousness. One that comes from the inside, because we think, oh well, I'm not an adulterer. I've never slept with my neighbor's wife, but like the Messiah said it, for example, if you're out to eat and a woman walks by your table and you lust with her in your heart, even if you have no idea who she is, you've never seen her in your life, you may as well have just laid down with her, because you've already committed that act in your heart. And the heart is what above all counts, because Yah looks at the heart, not the outward appearance, but it's the heart that matters, and the intention and the spirit behind it. Because, we consider and say, oh, yeah, have I ever killed someone? I've never murdered anybody physically, but have I had hatred in my heart? Yes, I've had hatred in my heart. And, that's something that I strive to not have, because ultimately to have hatred in your heart is to be a murderer. But you can be just as much of a murderer if you're walking around here with an angry and mad heart as if someone who's out here slaughtering people. Because guess what? They've got an angry and a hateful heart, too, to even be doing that. You just haven't taken that thought or that feeling in your heart and brought it out into a murderous rampage or a physically murdering type of act. But the thought and the intent is still there.
Yeah.
That's one, and really, like you said, that's a common phrase I've heard in Christianity. Old Testament concealed, New Testament revealed, which I think that's how they say it, right?
Yeah. I think to a point it's right, because it's concealed in the Old Testament what Yahuwah's plan is for mankind to a certain extent, and
right.
we only know maybe a morsel of what his real plan is. And as I truly believe, I know a lot of people don't agree with me, but I believe there was a process of Yahuwah's plan. It's a debate we could get into whether the plan of Yashrael started in the garden. I don't believe so. I believe that Yashrael was more of a plan B after the Tower of Babel, but that's something that's debated. But either way, Yahuwah revealed part of his plan in the Tanakh in a very slight way. He didn't really give a lot of depth of what his true plan for mankind was. I mean, we get a gist of it, of the Tanakh. We get the obedience. We get Yahuwah wants us to be his set-apart nation, but we really don't get what the Torah is actually about until Yahuwah comes as his son in the flesh. And then he explains it. He reveals what the Torah is really about. It's about love. And in the in the Tanakh, it was about, the Yashrael's hearts got so hardened that they looked at the commands like, okay, this is just something I need to do. Okay, do this, do that, do this, do that. It was just straight do's and don'ts. And Yahuwah, that's why he says in Isaiah 29:13, their hearts are far from me. Obeying these commands like they were taught by men, basically, by, I'm paraphrasing, but, even when they were obeying Yahuwah's law, they were obeying it just as like a, just as a do and don't list.
Yeah.
Their hearts weren't in it.
They didn't mix it with faith.
There was no faith, there was no belief, there was just strict legal obedience just to the law. And, even when they were obeying the law, they were doing it, really, most of them were not doing it out of their heart. I mean, yeah, you had the prophets, and you had David, and you had certain people really, doing it out of their heart, but a lot of the Yasharites just looked at it like out of fear, that Yahuwah was going to, out of fear, they were just, obeying the Torah. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but their hearts weren't really for Yahuwah, a lot of them. For the most part, the Yasharites were just doing it to do it. And I think the Torah started evolving in their eyes as a salvation thing. And they started feeling like if they don't obey the law, that they're not saved. And, and they started to get to where, the law was their means of being saved, and having salvation through works of the law. And I think that was part of the Torah being twisted because man didn't understand the purpose. You didn't understand that really what the Torah is to me anyway is the constitution of the kingdom. That's what it is. And it doesn't give us salvation? No. I could never claim that the law would give us salvation because, Yahusha did that. So he gave himself for us to have salvation. The law doesn't give us salvation. What the law does is help us to understand how we are to love Yahuwah. It's a guideline.
Yep.
It's to help us. It's a constitution of the kingdom. It's something to help us understand how we love our Creator and His Son. How we love them is by guarding their word. And I believe that's why Yahuwah came down in the flesh as His Son, because they didn't understand that.
Hallelujah.
They were like, oh, okay, this is a law that we have to do. And, it was basically them just doing it vainly, not understanding, not doing it out of love. They would just do it because they were told to do it. And that's why Yahuwah was saying that in Yashayahu. He was saying in the book of Isaiah, you hold to these commands like they're a teaching of man. There was no heart in it. There was no, really intention from the heart to please Yahuwah. They just did it because they thought they had to do those commands.
Yep.
So that's why I do believe to a certain point the Tanakh was concealed, had the Torah concealed, and in the Brit Hadashah was revealed. So it was revealed what does it truly mean to love Yahuwah with all your heart, mind, body, and soul, and what does it mean to love your neighbor as yourself. So, if we love Yahuwah and we love His Son, with all our heart, we're not going to eat pig. We're not gonna worship a tree, like Yahuwah keeps saying. Stop going under every green tree. Stop committing abominations. So, if we truly love Yahuwah and Yahusha, and I hope someone's listening to this recording, we are supposed to be obedient to Him if we love Him. And like I say, any believer, Christian, Messianic, whatever you want to call yourself, you want to love Yahuwah and Yahusha, obey His commandments. It's very simple.
Exactly.
Very simple.
Part of, linking loving Yah is obeying His commandments. I mean, the two are pretty linked together. It's not, one without the other. Obviously we believe in, if you believe in Yah, I mean, that's the thing. If you are really seeking to obey Yah's commandments, then you already believe in Him. Because why would you even be trying to obey and keep something, that you don't even, Elohim, that you don't even believe in? You know what I mean? But you're right. It's all about mixing in with faith. And you had referenced that verse in Yeshayahu. These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. He was so sick of Israel's feasts and their Shabbats and all their slaughterings and sacrifices. These things were becoming detestable to Him because they were doing these things, but their heart was not right with Him. They kept thinking, oh, I'm going to do all these things. I'm going to do this sacrifice and that sacrifice, but yet Yah is seeking obedience. Let me find this verse when I'm talking. it also makes me think of when Saul when Yah had given him a command to go in and kill all the animals, all the people, and not take anything. But Saul actually ended up saving some animals, and he thought he was doing a good thing because he thought, oh, I'm going to save the best animals from the land that I'm being sent to slaughter everything. I'm actually going to save some of these animals, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to sacrifice them to Yah. And I forget the prophet's name that came and talked to him, but he told him, he said, look, to obey is better than sacrifice. Yah don't care about those animals. Yah wanted you to kill those animals. He didn't want you to sacrifice them. So even though you might think, oh, well, I'm going to save these animals and I'm going to sacrifice them to Yah, Yah said, he gave you a command, kill them all, get rid of it all, don't save anything. But you can't then turn around and say, well, I saved these for you, because now you've gone completely against what he just commanded you to do in the first place. And now you're trying to offer him up something that he never even told you to do. And there was someone that asked Yahushua in the New Testament where, let's see, and the Messiah actually basically quoted, that to obey is better than sacrifice, because it is. Because think about this: if you obey, you don't really, you shouldn't even need it. Why would you need a sacrifice if you're obeying? Does Yah take sacrifices? Yes. Is there a time for that? Yes. But in terms of certain sacrifices and burnt offerings and all that, what Yah and in killing animals, Yah does not really desire that. Yah desires for his people to be humble, to walk rightly, to walk with him, and to live righteously. He does not really desire for us to be sitting around slaughtering animals all day to atone for our sins. He wants us to obey more than anything. Because if you ultimately obey, you're not going to really be needing all these offerings and sacrifices, because you've been doing what you were supposed to do all along.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is, Yahuwah, like I said before, with his law, it has to be executed in the way he wants it to be executed. If he's telling us to do something, do it. Don't be thinking, oh, well, I know better than Yahuwah, and I'm gonna, sacrifice something to him. If Yahuwah is telling us to do something, he's telling us to do it for a reason. And I could get into why I truly believe that there's certain peoples Yahuwah wanted to be utterly destroyed, and wasn't just for acts of genocide, but that's for another study.
Exactly.
that's for another study. So, a lot of people don't agree what I agree about that, but I believe, the ites that they were to destroy are not regular human beings, but I don't want to get too much into that right now. But I guess we could end this recording on chapter 20. We'll read chapter 20 real quick and end the recording.
All right, I wanted to comment really quickly too.
Yeah.
In Hosea 6, verses 6, when Yah was calling out to Yehuda and Ephraim, he says, "For I desired mercy and not sacrifice, and the knowledge of Elohim more than burnt offerings. But they, like men, have transgressed the covenant, but they have dealt treacherously against me." Above all, he wants obedience. And one more point real quick, and I'll shut up. Think about it like this. When it comes to obedience versus sacrifice, an example will be of this. We can't just up and sacrifice a Passover lamb, because Yah has said we can't do that. But it would be prideful of us to go and pick a lamb and slaughter it here and say, Yah, I offer this to you. That's crazy. Yah said you can't do that. So how are you going to offer him a sacrifice or an offering when he actually says obedience is more important than the sacrifice and the offering? So if you're wanting to honor Yah, you shouldn't even do the sacrifice, because to be obedient to him would be to understand that you should not even be doing that sacrifice for the Passover in the first place. So really you'd be playing yourself if you think you're going to be honoring and worshiping Yah in spirit and in truth, and you bust out and you pull out a lamb and slaughter it, thinking that you're obeying Yah, when really he already said, don't do this except where I put my name. And his name definitely is not in the United States of America, that's for sure. And I'm done.
Oh, yeah, that's perfect. That's actually, a good point, is that when they sacrificed the Passover was at the temple. We don't have no temple. So that's just another obvious reason that we can't be doing sacrifices right now. We're not in the Holy Land. We're not in the temple. So that would be doing his will in our own way. It would be trying to obey his law in our own way, which you read about Nadab and Abihu, they got consumed for that. They tried to bring strange fire. They tried to do an offering to Yahuwah in their own way, and they got consumed. They got destroyed. So Yahuwah wants us to be obedient, but he also wants us to be obedient in his way, the way he lays out his commandments. So that's just what I wanted to add before I read the last chapter, and then we'll stop the recording. All right. Everyone who is still listening, we are going to Deuteronomy 20, I believe, right? Or is it? Yeah, Deuteronomy 20. So let me turn there real quick. All right. And if you should go forth to war against your enemies, and should see horse and rider and a people more numerous than yourself, and you shall not be afraid of them, for Yahuwah your Elohim is with you, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. And it shall come to pass whenever you shall draw near to battle, that the priest shall draw near and speak to the people, and shall say to them, Hear, O Yashrael, you are going this day to battle against your enemies. Let not your heart faint, fear not, neither be confounded, neither turn aside from their face. For it is Yahuwah your Elohim who advances with you to fight with you against your enemies, and to save you. And the scribe shall speak to the people, saying, What man is he that has built a new house, and has not dedicated it? Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in war, and another man dedicate it. And what man is he that has planted a vineyard, and had not been made merry with it? Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in battle, and another man be made merry with it. And what man is he that has betrothed a wife, and has not taken her? Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in the battle, and another man take her. And the scribe shall speak further to the people, and say, What man is he that fears and is cowardly in his heart? Let him go and return to his house, lest he make the heart of his brother fail as his own. And it shall come to pass, when the scribes shall have ceased speaking to the people, that they shall appoint generals of the army to be leaders of the people. And if you shall draw near to a city to overcome them by war, then call them out peaceably. If then they should answer peaceably to you and open to you, it shall be that all the people found in it shall be tributary and subject to you. But if they will not hearken to you, but wage war against you, you shall invest it, until Yahuwah your Elohim shall deliver it into your hands, and you shall smite every male of it with the edge of the sword, except the women and the stuff, and all the cattle, and whatsoever shall be in the city, and all the plunder you shall take as spoil for yourself, and shall eat all the plunder of your enemies, whom Yahuwah your Elohim gives you. Thus shall you do to all the cities that are very far off from you, not being of the cities of these nations, which Yahuwah your Elohim gives you to inherit their land. Of these you shall not take anything alive, but you shall surely curse them. but you shall utterly destroy them, the Hittite, the Amorite, the Canaanite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite, as Yahuwah your Elohim has commanded you. And they not teach you to follow after all all their abominations, which they have done for their mighty ones. So would you transgress against Yahuwah your Elohim. When you shall besiege a city a long time in making war against it to take it, and you shall not destroy its trees by wielding an axe against them, for you may eat of them. You shall not cut them down, for is the tree of the field man, that it should be besieged by you? Only the trees that you know are not trees for food. You shall destroy and cut them down. You shall build bulwarks against the city that makes war with you until it falls. Okay. That was very interesting. Yeah. So, anything to add, Dave? Or
can you hear me? Sorry.
Yep.
This verse or this chapter is actually, speaking a lot about battling and, what you should do. Well, one thing I wanted to highlight was, one thing that is easy to forget is that it's Yah that fights the battle. It's not us. It's never been us. It was never Israel that fought the battle. It was always Yah. Yah has always been the fighter and the man of war for his people, and it's never been the strength of the people that made them strong. It's Yah that made them strong and saved them. No matter how big Pharaoh's army was, it's nothing to Yah. Like it says, Hear, O Israel, ye approach this day unto battle against your enemies. Let not your heart faint, fear not, and do not tremble. Neither be ye terrified because of them. For Yahuwah, your Elohim, is he that goes with you to fight for you against your enemies to save you. And I think, we even now we can apply this, because even in our spiritual and physical battles day to day, it's so easy to forget that a lot of what we're even dealing with is not even our battle. We're not even fighting against flesh and blood. We're fighting against evil spirits that run this world. And it's Yah that Yahushua has that victory over them. And it's the Most High that fights for us, not us. We have no confidence in our flesh. It's the Ruach that works through us and gives us power. It's not us. It's Yah.
Yeah, that is a great connection there. Honestly, I mean that chapter was self-explanatory to me. I can't really add much other than I will get into another time on why there was a division between what they were to do to the nations afar off from the ites that we just read, but I don't want to use my brother's channel for that. So I do think there's a distinction. There's a reason why Yahuwah told them not to spare the women and children of the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Hittites, and the Jebusites. We could talk about that another time. I just wanted to thank Darrenell. Thank you, brother, for allowing us to use your platform and just allowing me to run this conference call. Anyone that wants to hear more conference calls from us, go to my brother Devoted to Yah's page at devotedtoyah.com. I'm going to stop this recording right now. So, shalom, everyone who's been listening.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat's officially over.